It was a cold, damp morning in Birmingham, Alabama. Not cold enough for snow, but just enough to sting your fingers and cloud your breath. Outside the Children's Medical Center on 7th Avenue, people rushed in and out, scarves wrapped tight, coffee cups clutched close, walking fast like they could somehow outpace the pain waiting inside those hospital walls. But one person wasn't moving. He sat quietly near the revolving doors on a flattened piece of cardboard. His name was Malik Dawson, just 9 years old. His coat was a size too big, his sleeves rolled up to his wrists, and one of his worn boots was held together with silver duct tape. A red knit beanie rested low over his forehead, barely covering his ears. He didn't ask for money. He didn't even speak. Just sat, sketching in a battered notebook, eyes darting from face to face, always watching. Most of the hospital staff had tried shooing him off at first, assuming he was waiting for someone inside. But over time, they stopped trying. Malik didn't cause any trouble. He didn't beg. And on the rare occasion someone greeted him, he smiled softly before returning to his silent observing. Across the street, a sleek silver Range Rover was parked by a fire hydrant, engine idling. Inside sat Thomas Bennett, a man in his late 40s with graying temples and a sharp jawline dulled by exhaustion. He looked like a man who had once had it all, and now wasn't sure what was left. In the back seat was his daughter, Lila, 6 years old. Her brown curls were tucked behind one ear, and her legs were bundled under a pink blanket. Lila didn't speak anymore. Not since the accident. Once, she had raced through the yard chasing butterflies, climbing trees like she was born to fly. Now, she was paralyzed from the waist down. Thomas gently lifted her from the seat and carried her toward the hospital entrance, each step heavy with silent grief. He didn't see Malik. Most people didn't. But Malik saw him. Saw how tightly Thomas held his daughter. Saw how Lila's eyes avoided the building and stared only at the sky. Then, just as they were about to pass, Malik stood up and spoke, soft, calm, and certain. "Sir, I can help your daughter walk again." Thomas froze mid-step. Not because he was confused or offended, but because of the way the words were said. Not like a joke, not like a fantasy, but like a truth. Thomas Bennett slowly turned, tightening his grip on Lila as he stared at the boy who had just spoken. He scanned Malik from head to toe. Oversized jacket, cracked boots, taped soles, and a pair of smudged glasses hanging loosely from his shirt collar. "What did you just say?" Thomas asked sharply. Malik didn't flinch. He tucked his notebook under his arm and stepped forward. "I said, I can help your daughter walk again." Thomas's eyes narrowed. "That's not funny, kid." "I'm not joking," Malik replied, his voice calm but unwavering. Thomas took a breath, trying to dismiss the absurdity of the moment. He'd spent months listening to doctors, therapists, specialists, each of them carefully managing expectations, offering routines, exercises, hopes trimmed with disclaimers. And here was a boy, barely older than Lila, claiming he could undo what medicine couldn't. "You don't even know her," Thomas snapped, beginning to walk again. "You don't know what she's been through." Malik's reply was soft, but firm. "I don't have to know her to help." That stopped Thomas again. He turned back, irritated and weary. "You're what, 9? Maybe 10? And you think you know more than a hospital full of trained professionals?" Malik didn't answer right away. Instead, he glanced down at his notebook, fingers gently tracing the corner. Then he said, "My mom was a physical therapist. She used to work with patients who couldn't walk. I watched her every day. She said the body remembers, even when the brain forgets." Thomas blinked. "Your mom was a therapist?" "She passed away," Malik added quietly. "But she taught me everything she could. I've been helping people on my own, just little things. Just trying." Thomas didn't know what to say. His instincts screamed this is ridiculous, a homeless boy offering to heal his daughter. But there was something about Malik's eyes. They didn't have the wild look of desperation or con. They had stillness. Something old. Something honest. Still, he turned away. "We don't have time for this." Inside the hospital, the day dragged on. Lila's appointments were routine. More charts. More careful words. Long road ahead. No guarantees. Keep trying. But none of the doctors offered anything new. Thomas nodded, smiled politely, but his mind wasn't in the room. He kept hearing it. I can help your daughter walk again. It echoed every time he looked at Lila. Every time she tried to smile and failed. Every time her little legs didn't respond to his gentle squeezes. By mid-afternoon, they left the building. The sky had cleared, but the air was still sharp. Thomas carried Lila out like always, her weight familiar in his arms. But just as they approached the car, he noticed Malik again. Still there. Same spot. Same notebook. This time, Malik was watching him. Not waving. Not begging. Just looking like he knew something Thomas didn't. Thomas hesitated. He looked down at Lila. Her eyes were closed. Then he looked back at Malik. You again, he muttered, walking over. Why would you say something like that? You think it's funny giving false hope to people like us? Malik shook his head. No, sir. You don't know what this has been like, Thomas said. She used to run. Now she barely speaks. And we've tried everything. Therapy, surgery, specialists. Nothing. Malik didn't step back. He simply said, I'm not promising magic. Just asking for 1 hour. That's all. 1 hour. Thomas repeated, incredulous. Malik nodded. No money. No tricks. Just a chance. Thomas stared at him, torn between disbelief and something dangerously close to curiosity. He sighed. Fine, he said at last. You want to waste your time, kid? Meet us at Harrington Park tomorrow. Noon. Don't be late. Malik's expression didn't change. He just nodded once. I'll be there. The next day arrived with a hesitant sun peeking through overcast clouds. Harrington Park looked quiet, its worn swings swaying gently in the breeze, and its cracked basketball court sitting empty. At exactly 11:45 a.m., Malik arrived, carrying the same faded gym bag and wearing his oversized jacket. He laid a folded towel on the bench near the old oak tree and unpacked a few odd items: a rice-filled cloth pack, a tennis ball, a pair of soft socks, and a small jar of cocoa butter. At 12:07, the black SUV pulled into the lot. Thomas stepped out, weary-eyed, and lifted Lila gently into her wheelchair. She wore a pink hoodie and a distant expression. But when she saw Malik, she blinked in recognition, and something like curiosity sparked in her eyes. Thomas wheeled her over, arms crossed tightly. He wasn't ready to believe, but something had brought him back. Malik stood as they approached. Hi again, he said softly. Hi, Lila replied shyly. Thomas raised an eyebrow. How do you know her name? You said it yesterday, Malik answered. I remember stuff. Thomas gestured at the towel. So what now? Magic carpet ride. Malik smiled politely. No, sir. Just the basics. He knelt beside Lila. If it's okay, can I work with your legs a little? Nothing will hurt. Just tell me to stop if anything feels weird. Lila looked at her dad. He gave a reluctant nod. Malik gently removed the blanket from her legs and placed the warm rice cloth over her thighs. She flinched. Too hot. She shook her head. It feels good. He waited, then slowly began rotating her legs, small, careful movements. Side to side, up and down. Thomas watched closely, arms folded. You ever done this before? My mom used to take me to shelters. She helped veterans. Said everyone deserves to feel human again. Thomas remained skeptical. So now you're the therapist? I'm just doing what she taught me. He tapped lightly on Lila's knee. You feel that? Lila paused. No. That's okay, Malik said. We'll keep trying. As the minutes passed, Malik talked to her. He asked about her favorite colors, what cartoons she liked, whether she preferred strawberries or chocolate. At first, she answered in short whispers. But gradually, the answers grew longer. She asked questions back. Where do you live? Why don't you go to school? Malik hesitated. My mom got sick, then she passed. I've been figuring things out since. Lila looked down. I'm sorry. Malik gave a small nod. Thanks. For nearly 30 minutes, he worked on her legs, keeping the movements gentle but consistent. Finally, he tapped her ankle again. Anything? She blinked. A little. Like pressure. Thomas leaned in. She sometimes says that during therapy. Malik nodded. Yeah, but therapy is usually done in cold rooms with scary machines. Kids tighten up. Here. He looked around the open park. It's different. Air. Trees. It matters. Thomas didn't respond, but his arms dropped slightly from their crossed position. He was listening now. By the time they finished, Lila's face looked calmer, less closed. Her shoulders weren't so tense. "I'll come back next week," Malik said. "Your muscles remember. You just need to remind them." Thomas cleared his throat. "We're not expecting miracles." "I'm not offering any," Malik replied. "Just trying." Thomas hesitated, then reached into his coat and held out a folded bill. Malik stepped back. "No, sir. I don't want your money." "Then why are you doing this?" Malik looked over at Lila, who was smiling slightly. "Because she smiled." "That's enough." Thomas stared at the boy, ragged clothes, no home, but somehow more dignity than most people he knew. That night, Thomas sat in his office, unable to focus on the emails piling up. He kept remembering Malik's quiet patience, the way Lila leaned into his questions, the way she almost giggled. And for the first time in 6 months, the emptiness in the house wasn't so loud. Lila poked her head in. "Daddy?" He turned. "Yeah, baby." "That boy," she paused. "He believed it. That I could walk." Thomas swallowed. "Yeah, I think he did." She smiled gently, and on her armrest, she walked her fingers like legs. Thomas didn't say anything. He couldn't. His throat was tight. But deep inside, something was changing. It wasn't a miracle. It was hope. The next few weekends followed the same quiet rhythm. Sunday after Sunday, Thomas would pull up to Harrington Park with Lila, and Malik would already be there, towel laid out, rice packs warm, his duct-taped boots planted firmly in the grass like roots that refused to be moved. It became their ritual. But on the fourth Sunday, the mood was different. The sky was gray, and the wind carried a heavier chill. When the SUV pulled up, Malik could immediately sense something was wrong. Thomas stepped out, looking frustrated. Lila's eyes were red, her arms folded tightly. "She doesn't want to do it today," Thomas said shortly, lifting her from the car. "She tried moving her legs this morning. Nothing happened. She says it's pointless now." Lila refused to look at either of them. Malik approached slowly, kneeling beside her. "Bad days happen," he said gently. "You think I don't get tired?" She still didn't answer. "I used to cry in the corner of a shelter when my mom couldn't afford medicine and I couldn't do anything. I know what it's like to feel stuck. But if you stop now, the part of you that still wants to move might stop trying too." Lila finally met his eyes. "I'm scared," she whispered. Thomas turned sharply. It was the first time he'd heard her admit it. "I am too," Malik said, voice steady. "But scared doesn't mean stop. It just means you're getting close to something big." She looked at him for a long second, then gave a tiny nod. "Okay, let's try again." That session was quieter than usual. Fewer jokes. Fewer smiles. Just Malik's patience, Thomas's steady hands, and Lila's growing determination. Then it happened. After 30 minutes of gentle movement and encouragement, Lila moved her right foot. Not just a toe twitch, but her entire foot slid forward. Thomas blinked. "Wait, was that you?" She nodded slowly. "I did it." Thomas knelt beside her, stunned. "You did that?" She smiled. "I really did." Malik didn't say a word. He just sat back on the grass, watching. Later that night, Thomas stood at the kitchen sink, staring at his reflection in the window. For the first time in months, the house felt like a home again. Not a hospital substitute, not a place for pain, but a place where things might grow again. Zeke sat at the table, quietly sketching. Thomas turned. "You changed everything," he said softly. Zeke didn't look up. "I did. My daughter walked today," Thomas said. "Not because of a machine or a drug, but because a boy with nothing decided to keep showing up." Zeke paused his drawing. "That's what my mom would have done." Thomas looked down, throat tight. "I wish she could see this." "She does," Zeke said, without hesitation. "She sees everything." In the following days, the story began to ripple outward. A nurse who had seen Lila at the hospital spotted her in the park, standing and smiling. She told another staff member. The story traveled through quiet conversations, whispered questions, and curious phone calls. By the next weekend, 2 new families were waiting at the park. One had a boy recovering from a stroke. The other, a girl with leg braces and a walker. Both had heard about the kid who helped the Reeves girl move her feet again. Thomas turned to Zeke. "You don't have to do this." Zeke adjusted the strap on his bag. "I want to." He gave up his usual time with Lila to help the others. He showed parents how to warm rice packs, how to guide without pushing, how to talk to their kids instead of talking over them. And to the kids, he said just one thing: "You're not broken. You're just learning a different way to be strong. Lila watched him the whole time, her hands folded in her lap, smiling quietly. On the drive home, she said, I like watching him help people. Thomas met her eyes in the rearview mirror. Me too. They were no longer just a family struggling to heal. They had become part of something larger. And so had Malik. It had been 9 Sundays. 9 quiet meetings on the same grass patch beneath the old oak tree. 9 times that Malik had laid out his towel, warmed the rice packs, and reminded one small girl, and now many others, that healing wasn't always about hospitals. It was about hope, consistency, and human connection. But this Sunday felt different. As soon as they pulled up, Malik felt it in his chest. The breeze was softer. The families were already gathered. Some were chatting. Others setting up mats, folding chairs, or helping their kids with warm-up stretches. Lila was unusually quiet in the back seat, her hands clasped in her lap, a determined look on her face. Thomas wheeled her toward the center of the group. Malik was already waiting, kneeling by his towel, supplies neatly arranged. You ready? He asked gently. Lila didn't smile. She just nodded. Same as always, Malik said. We help you up. You do the rest. Thomas moved behind her, lifting gently under her arms. Malik guided her legs into place. 1, 2, 3, he whispered. And then, Lila stood. Her knees wobbled. Her arms trembled. But her feet were planted on the ground, firm, alive, steady. A hush fell over the crowd. Someone gasped. Someone else whispered a prayer. Lila opened her eyes, looked down at her legs, and smiled. I'm standing, she whispered. Malik blinked fast, swallowing emotion. Yeah, you are. Thomas stepped back, letting go slowly. She didn't fall. She took a step, then another. And with the bravery only a child could carry, she took a third step alone, before falling into her father's arms, both of them laughing and crying all at once. That moment became something more than progress. It was proof. Proof that a boy with nothing but kindness, memory, and duct-tape boots could move the world. That evening, back in their kitchen, Thomas placed a hand on Malik's shoulder. You changed our lives, he said. You reminded me that miracles aren't always loud. Sometimes, they wear worn-out coats and sit quietly on park benches. Malik looked up and nodded. I didn't do it alone. Thomas smiled. No, but you showed us how to begin.